So let's get started. Okay, so what we'll be covering today, we'll be going through our 1.9 new feature introduction. So it's all our new features that we'll be going through. All right, so we have obviously our HIK Pro Connect Cloud Storage solution, and then our HIK Pro Connect Cloud Network Management. So if you joined the previous presentations, you would know that we covered our cloud storage solution, which is our cloud box, as well as our online cloud storage network management solutions, which is our switches. Okay, so if you're looking at our new function introduction, right, we have now the multiple site managers for one site, right? So in the previous versions, we only had one installer can be assigned to the site at this time, right? Now we've increased this to 100 installers can be the site managers of a particular site. So we can have one site owner and we can have multiple managers. Okay, so we can obviously give, if we have multiple managers going onto physical sites, who are maybe our team leaders, we can then add them onto our manager site. They can then manage the particular site, give authorization to our technicians or remove certain authorizations, all right? So we can also then send health check reports to multiple managers. Okay, so previously it was only sent to either the owner of the site or the site technician, the owner of the site technician. Now we can send the physical reports to multiple managers. Okay, so that is like you report the work that you physically done on site or the issues that's currently on site. We can get the report sent to our physical managers. Okay. We also have our showing of our offline device durations. All right, so the offline duration can be shown for installers to know the exact offline time period for handling. What this shows us is physically. It will show us if a device is physically offline. It will show us the time, the date, the amount of seconds, the amount of minutes that a device is physically being offline. So we can then monitor to see this particular device was offline for a certain period of time. What was the actual reasoning? Was it a load shedding problem? Is there a device issue? It will also give us the statuses of the physical device. So if they do come online, we can physically run the report for that. So if you look on our health monitoring page, all the information of our particular devices that's added is on there. We can obviously see then our online and our offline devices. It gives us the time duration of our physical devices, right? If you look in on the site page, also on the site page, it gives us the model number of our physical devices. So in this slide, we're showing a physical camera as well as our AX Pro. It will then show us the statuses of those particular devices. Then we also have our device health check report. And on our health check report, we're then able then to physically run a report. And then this shows us, for example, our offline statuses of our device. We're then able to run that report, see when this particular device went offline, what is the reason for the device going offline, and then this will help us proactively get our devices back online. Okay, so then the next function that we have, this is for search tool for important firmware update, right? So previously when there was vulnerability on certain devices, we need to physically enter the physical serial number of this device, of the serial number of the physical device in order to see if there's vulnerability on the devices. Now, obviously on the HIK Pro Connect, we've released a new version and it's called the important firmware update. So this allows us to detect devices with vulnerability. So if a certain camera, for example, has a physical threat, or there's a threat that might be vulnerable on the physical network, that somebody might be able to hack our physical devices, we can then automatically pick this up on our physical list itself by doing a quick search of vulnerable devices. We are then, if it's all the same devices or the same model numbers of those particular devices, we are then able to select all of those particular cameras. For example, if it's 10 cameras that has the same model number that is on the same current firmware version, we can then select all of those devices. We are then able to do a batch update of the firmwares of all those physical devices. Okay, so there's no need to physically do it one by one. There's no need to go and search via serial number for a particular device. We're then able to see on our physical list as a vulnerable list, and then we can do the update of our physical devices. Okay, so this is just a search tool for important firmware devices and how to use it. Okay, so on the HIK Pro Connect mobile application, we are then able then to scan the physical QR code of the physical devices. Okay, and then obviously we can also see if that physical device is vulnerable or not. So like I mentioned before, I'll use this particular model, which is the DS-TCP440. If there was an issue on this particular device, or somebody's trying to hack our physical devices for whatever reason or so forth, we can then just go to the physical device from our HIK Pro Connect app. We're then able to scan that QR code. Just remember that device needs to be added onto our physical HIK Pro Connect, and we need to have authorization for that particular device. We will then scan the QR code, and then we are able to do the firmware update, right? On the physical portal itself, okay, this will be on our PC, on our batch upgrade devices. We are then able to check for our vulnerable devices itself. Okay, we can then click on the batch upgrade tool, and then automatically it will link us through to the correct firmware for that vulnerable device. And then we're able to do a batch upgrade for all our devices. So again, a nice feature where we don't have to do firmware updates on one particular device. If it's the same model and the same firmware version that needs to be upgraded, we can then do a batch upgrade. Also remember, it's always advisable, if a firmware upgrade is needed on a camera, we need to check that we do not skip firmware versions in between. So for example, if the current firmware version is on version 5.1, we need to do 5.2, then 5.3, and then 5.4. This just makes it make sure that the camera actually has all the updates done on the physical device, because we do not want to damage the camera. Okay. Then we have our next one. This is how to use it on the step 2 on the update. So this is physically showing us, this is our upgrade online devices, right? So now we have a list of our physical devices, right? On this particular one, we can see we can select 2 of our physical devices. This is 2 different cameras. We can then search for online updates, device in batch, right? And then we can physically update this manually from our local files, right? So on our local interface itself, right? Or on our upgrade itself, we can then also request for particular firmware and then physically download it onto our PC and then update it onto our physical cameras itself. Okay, so like before, you would obviously request for certain firmwares from either our call center or our online Europe site or our online Africa site. We would download the particular firmware. We would then extract the physical file through to the DigiCap, and then we are able then to upgrade our firmwares. Okay, so this is our ARC to the more installers, right? So remember, this is the alarm receiving centers that we would add as a physical installer, which we would link to, for example, ADT site, right? They will physically monitor the client's device itself. So in the event that the alarm goes off, a notification will get sent to them, and then they will come and assist the client, right? So previously, we had to add in your company to the alarm receiving center. This was done on an offline state, which was physically inconvenient, right? So when you're adding it onto this, we had to wait for authorization to happen. We have to be off-site, on-site to physically do this, right? But now the new function, we can do the online add your company to ARC list. It will allow you to quickly complete the physical process. Okay, the advantages of this also is, once you've added it onto that physical list, your ADT or all your other control companies can physically see all your details of your physical company. Okay, so in the event a client will come to them and say, I'm looking for an installer in my particular area, all your details can be physically on there, and they can refer you as a physical installer to go and assist that particular client. Okay, so the process is just showing us over here. To apply for the physical process, right? You need to register a HIK Pro Connect account and make sure you select the user type as alarm receiving center. So you as a technician right now, because you want to use the alarm receiving center, you need to make sure that when you're doing your selection for your account details, you need to make sure that it's alarm receiving center, all right? And then you can log in and you can go to your company information. Okay, and then that will obviously allow you to insert all your company information, as well as your email address, cell phone number, as well as your physical logo, right? Then physically on step 2, like I just mentioned, we need to fill in our company information. on the physical sheet. Okay, we need to make sure that all our information is correct, because obviously the registration needs to take place. Once the registration takes place, we will verify that you are physically an installer and you have a physical company, and then we will upload you onto our physical database, right? On the step 3, we will then receive a HIK ID or an API key, okay? And then once you have that, you will also receive an ARC key, which is the secret PIN that we will get sent through to you via either email address or your physical cell phone number, right? So just make sure that those details are correct, right? And then once you use this, you complete the configuration on your ARC software, and it will also pull through to your HIK IP Receiving Pro, right? So very important, all your information needs to be correct before submitting your application. Okay, basically on the step 4, right? Once you have now added all your information onto your physical profile, you have now registered to become under the HIK list, okay, or alarm receiving center as an installer, right? You will then be able to test the device and to make sure that the ARC software can receive the alarms and the physical upload of your evidence of your physical sites itself. So, and you will then physically test to make sure, yes, my alarm is physically working. I am then able to send a screenshot or evidence of what's actually happening. I can then also send a screenshot of the site that I'm physically on. All of that information will get there, uploaded. Okay, step 5, remember I said to you that now you're going to be registered on the HIK list itself. All right, so if you see on the left hand side, you'll be able to select HIK for authorization. All right, so Hikvision then will verify the evidence within 3 working days after approval, and your company information will be displayed on the HIK list. So once Hikvision has approved that Robin is now an authorized installer, he has now registered his account, all his information is correct, we will then add it to that physical HIK list. The advantages of adding you to a HIK list, like I mentioned, if you have a company like ADT, they can then physically go on that physical list and see, okay, Robin works in the Sandton area. Robin is 5 kilometers away from my particular client. You can then send a recommendation to the particular client that, you know what, Robin is an installer in your area. We've worked with him before. He knows what he's doing. We can then recommend him to come and assist you. Okay. Also, we have more updates on our physical HIK Pro Connect, right? We have added the door open normally as a trigger event, right? So what this happens is, in the event a particular door is open for a long period of time, and somebody physically hasn't closed it, or it doesn't have a lever to physically close it, you will then receive a notification, and you can notify your client, hey, ma'am, sir, please, there's a particular door that's physically open that needs to be closed. Okay, so in the previous versions, we didn't have this particular function. So this is a nice function for our particular clients, because in the event somebody puts a stopper by the particular door and nobody knows about it, we can then receive the notification. Okay. Also, we have the optimize the company or authentication process. All right. This is specifically for your physical photos, or example, your business licenses. Right, this is required to help the company authenticate more quickly. So previously, like I mentioned, it's very important that we put in our correct details for our physical company, our name, our company details. If we have a VAT registration, we can put all of that in over there. Once you've installed, uploaded our physical photos or our company logo onto the profile, it will then get sent online directly through to Hikvision, and we can process it much quicker. Okay, so also the other functions that we have improved on right now is obviously it supports now 39 languages, all right, in our send report regularly module. Before, we only had the English option for South Africa, right? We also then supports showing the smart information on the physical checklist itself. What is that? This is just the define status. This will show us our physical network statuses. It will show our hard drive statuses as an example. It will show it's abnormal or abnormal. So that is physically showed on our physical reports right now also. All right. Also, we have the installers now can view device compatibility list in the tutorial center or a help center and send information to Hikvision. What this means is, if we have a particular device that we think is supposed to be on that compatibility list, or a particular device that we don't see on that compatibility list, we can then send this notification through to Hikvision and say, hey, ma'am, sir, is this particular device compatible? If not, is there a particular firmware upgrade that can be launched on this particular device in order for it to make it compatible? Remember, on the previous sessions, I did mention to you, if you have the HIK Pro Connect box and you do not have devices that is physically compatible, we will then be able to add it via using the physical box itself. Okay, so for example, I gave you the K2604. It is not compatible on the HIK Pro Connect due to the version of the device. However, we're able to add it via the proxy function. On step 2, we're going to go to the HIK. This is a cloud storage solution, which I touched on briefly on the previous times. Okay, we're looking at the pain point for technicians or end users. For example, if they steal your physical DVR, what is the implications of that, right? We're also looking at the HIK Pro Connect cloud storage solution, which I touched on previously. And they may also have the HIK Pro Connect direct cloud storage solution. And then obviously we go through the differences between the two. The one is obviously cloud and one is a physical device itself. Okay, so I just want to go back. Sorry, I do apologize. So in previous times, you have obviously a DVR that's or NVR that's physically connected to our physical camera. We then have the recording stated based on our physical device itself. So in the event somebody steals our physical device, we have no physical recordings or data. So we don't able to see how many people came in, what time they came in to steal our physical devices, and who the actual perpetrators were. All right. So that was challenging for our particular clients, obviously, right? And obviously they may have no playbacks and their device is physically missing. So like I said, a pain point for this is obviously loss of evidence and how to get property back. Okay. So in the event that we could have a physical snapshot or physical data of who physically stole our devices, maybe we can find out who physically stole it. Maybe it was an employee, maybe it's somebody we know, maybe it's somebody that was lurking around our particular offices, and somebody can identify him. We can then obviously get that footage, all right? And obviously, if a device is been stolen, NVR or DVR, there's no way we can get physical playback from that. Okay, so we as Hikvision needed to come up with a physical solution for our clients, right? So what we've come up with is our HIK Pro Connect cloud storage solution. Okay, what this physical cloud storage solution is for. Also remember, before I move on, this physical box or solution is only there for installers. So if you are an installer, you can then purchase this particular box and then you can render the service to your clients. So you can charge the client, for example, per channel or per month or per week, depending on the information that the client wants and the relationship that you have with that particular client. Right? So you as a physical installer will then have the HIK Pro Connect box. You will then add it onto your physical application, and then you will then render the service to your client. Remember, like I said, it's a cloud storage box, so it needs to be online on the same LAN network at the client's premises. Okay. How you can add this? You can add individual cameras. So you can have up to 8 individual cameras added directly to the your router, which then obviously goes online that you can load to your cloud storage. Or if the client has an NVR or DVR, you can add up to 8 cameras from that particular NVR or DVR. Okay, and then there it just shows us our HIK Pro Connect box. So this is how the topology works. Client would have a physical camera on site, which is then connected to a router. You can then have your HIK Pro Connect box in another location in the building, just provided it is connected to that same router or on a physical switch connected to the same LAN network. Then we are able then to pull in the stream from the physical device itself. Okay. So what it basically does is it shows us our cloud storage management, right? What are we able to do with this? We're able then to do playback. We're able then to search backup videos on that particular device itself. So all our clips, remember I mentioned previously, this is not continuous recording. It would be just events or motion detection for certain clips or event that particular that physically happened on that site. So this is just showing us our physical box. So the box model number is the DS6700NI-S. Okay, so this particular box is connected to the back end device or a camera to transcode video. So like I mentioned, it has to be on the same LAN network. So we can't have this particular device offsite and try to do recording for the client. So it has to be on the same LAN network. Okay. And then just the key features, it's a very small box. It's a 9.5 centimeter by 9.2, which is very small. And obviously it's like in the palm of your hand and very easy to set up. It just has basically power and a LAN cable connected directly to your router or to your switch itself. And then you can physically add it onto your HIK-Pro Connect as a device itself. And then you can set up the particular cameras or devices that you would like recording to happen on. Okay. Also remember the high compatibility. It supports up to eight channels at 2 megapixels at 30 frames per second. So this is just going through the actual device itself. So this is two different definitions for demands, right? So like I mentioned to you, you have the two definitions, meaning that you can have cameras that's added to an NVR or DVR, or you can have individual cameras added to the physical device itself, right? And also I mentioned it's a cloud video that supports 1080p or D1, just depending on it. And then this is 6 to 10 frames per second, right? Or you can have, example, 4 megapixel cameras at 30 frames per second. And then you need to break them down to 1 1080p or 2 1080p's, just depending on the amount of devices you have. Okay. Then we also have the low video loss risk, which is your ANR. ANR stands for the automatic network replenishment, right? So this automatically tells the camera to start recording footage to the memory card in the event that there's information that gets lost on the device. So for example, if you have a physical camera itself that has, you'll need to install a memory card inside of the device, this box will pick up now that the DVR has now been stolen. Then automatically the recording then will happen on the camera itself onto that SD card, and it will automatically get uploaded to your HIK-Pro Connect box. Okay, so then this is what is called the ANR function. Like I mentioned before, it's automatically network replenishment. So in the event somebody unplugs the network cable or steals your physical device, your data will not get lost. Okay, so what is the advantages of this particular device itself? Right, so it's quick add and flexible management. Like I mentioned before, it's basically a plug and play device, right? You just need to be added to your physical HIK-Pro Connect. So it just has power and a physical LAN cable. Plug the LAN cable into your physical network, add the device to your HIK-Pro Connect, right? Once you then have the interface itself, all right, you'll then able to see your physical devices. Once you've added your channel, you can then select the particular camera you want for recording. It will then pick up the IP address and the port of that device automatically. You will then just put in the username and the password. If it's the NVR, you will put the username and password of the NVR, or you can add the individual cameras itself. You will then also be able to then select your channel management page. On your channel management page, there you can be able to select if you want it on high definition or on low definition. You are then able to select the type of event that you want. Do you want a line crossing? Do you want motion detection? Do you want intrusion detection? You can then select it. Once you physically select the videos, you can then click on save and it will automatically start doing your uploads. Also, when adding the physical devices, right, this will physically show us the visible bandwidth to avoid video loss. So once you've added your physical devices, a network detection tool can automatically recommend that, Robin, this particular device is too high. Please drop the particular resolution of this particular device. Okay. You'd also then recommend a suitable uploading definition and channel numbers. So previously we would add devices onto our our DVR or NVRs. Then after a while we pick up our devices are not recording for whatever reason. Maybe it's on H.265, for example, and our device doesn't support it, or our resolution of our devices is too high, or we have too many 8 megapixel devices on our particular device. So what we've physically done is now this particular tool itself will basically detect that how many devices is on there. You have now 5 channels or 5 cameras. Please drop your resolution down to 1920 by 1080p or example, or if you have 8 channels at high resolution, please drop them down to 704 by 576. So this is just a solution to assist the technicians to make sure that all the devices that gets added is compatible and that the recording will happen. Okay, so the next we will go to is our HIK Pro Connect Direct Cloud Storage solution. All right, so this is a device, you don't need a physical device to do this. Okay, we just look at the workflow of this before I get to the cloud storage solution. Sorry, this is still on the Pro Connect box. Okay, so adding the HIK Pro Connect to NVR with the new firmware helps transmit videos over cloud on demand. Okay, so this particular firmware, we need to make sure that our devices is physically compatible, right? So like I said, we have to go through our compatibility list before we do this. So this is our cloud storage channel, or you can have your physical NVR, like I mentioned, connected onto the same router. Okay, then it got connected directly to the cloud service. So if you look at this topology over here, there's no cloud storage box needed. This is direct connection to the cloud service. Okay, so this is a new feature that we currently have. I know back in the day, if you guys are aware, you used to have the DVRs that we were able to do cloud storage on via Dropbox or Google Drive. Obviously, that functionality is now being removed. Hence, we have introduced the cloud storage services for our technicians and for our clients. Also remember, this service can only be offered by a physical technician itself. Your client at the front end cannot do this on his own. So basically the same topology will work as your cloud, your HIK Pro Connect box itself. So you'll just go onto your management tool. You'll basically select your cloud or your physical device itself. Just make sure that the device is compatible. So the device is compatible. I know that the NVR and DVRs needs to be on version 4.5 or higher. So any devices lower than that is not compatible. So I know from our IDS upwards to 96 series is compatible. Right? So once you physically add the device on the left-hand side, you'll see your device will get added. Okay, that's an NI device or 76 series, right? We will then select the physical device itself, or basically one click. You click on the physical cloud storage. We can then go to our physical events. Okay, once you clicked on the physical events, like as mentioned before, we'll click on our definition if you want standard definition or you want high definition, right? And then we can also see on the right-hand side, remember, this is a paid for service, right? So we need to then select the physical paid for service. We are then also able to renew this on the same physical page itself. So remember, I mentioned in the previous slides that we have our 7-day service, we have our 30-day service. So this is depending on what you would like. So I'll give you an example of a 7-day service. We would like our devices, our events to be viewed for 7 days. You can purchase that, or you can have 30 days, just depending on your client's needs. Also, more features on the HIK Pro Connect. We have our online upgrade, which I did mention previously. Okay, so the NVR needs a simple upgrade to realize its function, which can be done online, remotely, and can easily click on HIK Pro Connect. So you don't have to physically request for physical firmware to happen or download it off the site. If the device is compatible on the HIK Pro Connect, you can then select it. The HIK Pro Connect will then physically search for that particular firmware and will be able to update your device itself. Okay, we also have the known real-time condition. This will obviously display our network condition of our device. If there's an issue on our bandwidth, we are then able to rectify this. If there's a device or a network compatibility issue, we can then rectify this immediately. Okay, they also have our centralized device management. Right, so HIK Pro Connect supports the centralized management and health monitoring to ensure devices work properly. So previously I mentioned on the the previous 2 presentations, on our health monitoring page, we are then able to see the amount of devices that's physically online, or if a device is physically offline, we're then able to see the statuses of our devices as well as our hard drives. We're also then able to see, for example, our battery time or our battery life on our AX Pros. And obviously this helps us to manage our physical sites to see if there's any threats or if there's any issues on a particular site, if there's, for example, an IP conflict on a particular site, we can then notify our client, hey, ma'am, sir, please change a particular IP address, and so that your devices don't have this vulnerable thing. Or if we have physical authorization as an installer, we can then log in and physically change the IP address for that client. Okay, so like I mentioned before, if on our physical packages, we have our multi-storage cloud storage packages, right? So you have the 7-day monthly package, or you have the 7-day annual package. We also then have our 30-day monthly package and our 30-day annual package. So example, the 7-day monthly packages, this is video can be stored in a cloud for 7 days. And after the 7th day, it will then overlap day 1 and then continue recording on the physical cloud itself. Okay, then also I mentioned the video loss, right? We also have that ANR function, which is our automatic network replenishment. Okay, so this also tells the camera or device to physically start recording in the event that there's a network failure or your device physically gets stolen. Just remember, if you insert a memory card into that particular device, you need to make sure that you format it in order for it to start recording. Okay, so now we've done this for our client itself. We have now got the cloud storage function added on for our client. What can the client see on his HIK Connect app itself? Okay, and the functions that he can use. So he also has the new function right now where we have up to 8 times fast forward. So if you've seen on our previous HIK Connect, the video playback speed was reduced, but now we've increased that for quick playback and obviously to save time. So if a client wants to go through a particular video quicker, he's able to do so instead of lagging it on 1 times playback. Okay, we're then also able to do the quick search video. Okay, so in the event we know the particular date, we can then click on the physical date. We can then click on that physical time, which will obviously download much quicker. So in the event we have our videos now on the physical cloud, remember the client now has access to that particular cloud, and the client would like to save it onto his physical device. He can then select the multiple devices and the videos that was recorded, and then obviously upload this directly onto his cell phone. So in the event he wants to share this with somebody or share evidence with somebody, he's then able to do so. Okay, so then this is just showing us the topology and how it physically works and who we've been incorporated with. Okay, so this is just our third-party agency certificate from Hikvision itself. So this was approved by the end of 2021. So we have the certificate to have our cloud storage available in South Africa, and we have been approved. So this just shows us our topology. And basically what they're showing this is that once a device is physically online, okay, it then gets encrypted prior to it physically going to that cloud storage server. Once it's on that cloud storage server, if we request data from it, it then gets encrypted again back to us. So this is secure for your clients. So you can advise your clients that all your videos are encrypted. Nobody can just take this physical detail or log onto the physical cloud and download your physical data. Each and every clip or data that gets sent up to our physical cloud is encrypted. Then it just shows us our compatibility list, right? So we need to make sure that we have our HIK Pro Connect. We need to make sure it's on version 1.8, okay? On our client's end, we need to make sure that the client is on the new version, which is 4.18. So the client can just go onto the app itself and check for the update and make sure that they're on the correct version itself. Also, I remember, also I mentioned previously, we need to make sure that our devices are on version 4.51 and higher. So iSeries NVR or our Deep in Mind series NVR. We need to make sure that they is compatible. Okay, and also on our parameters for our cloud, we need to cloud. This is up to two channels only. So if you have the HIK Pro Connect box, you can add up to 8 channels previously mentioned. Okay, however, on the cloud itself, you can only have 2 channels for cloud storage at this particular point. Okay, so this one is for resolution is up to 8 megapixels. Okay, 25 frames per second and 5 megapixel bitrate. Right. Also on our cloud video types. Remember, I mentioned the events that we can do. We can do motion detection, line crossing, intrusion detection, and alarm input. Okay, and then also our cloud storage packages. Remember, I mentioned it's a 7-day monthly package, 7-day annual. We have the 30-day monthly and now 30-day annual. So if we look at the breakdown between the two and the differences between the two devices, okay, so direct cloud storage solution, okay, we don't need any adapter, meaning a physical device itself, okay, then it gives us our compatibility list, like I mentioned, 4.51 for the cloud. So that is very important. You have to have 4.51 if you want to use the cloud storage option. We only then have 2 channels that is able then to get added to our cloud storage. Okay, this is per site. Okay, and then up to 8 megapixel resolution. However, if you have the cloud storage box solution, yes, you would need the physical cloud storage box. And also, like I mentioned, you can have almost up to all your physical devices or cameras that can get added, just depending if they are supported. However, you can add the non-proxy host function, and then you can add non-function devices or non-compatibility devices onto that. However, you can only do obviously your live view and your remote playback from that non-compatible devices. Okay, the next one we're going to look at is our HIK Pro Connect Cloud. This is our network management solution. Okay. So previously I mentioned in the previous training sessions about our smart switches. So I'm going to use the smart switch as an example in this one. This is hard to judge whether device or network has problems. Okay, so in the event you have a physical switch itself or a smart switch, it has to be a smart switch. We are then able to check on our HIK Pro Connect itself if a particular port is faulty or if a particular IP address has conflict. We are then able to monitor that. We are then able to see that camera number 1 that's in building A is now plugged into port number 2. This particular port has a problem. We then go directly to that particular port on that switch, and then we can rectify it. Or if we need to restart that particular port, we are able to do so and not physically restart the whole device itself. Okay, so also hard to find which device is connected to which switch. Like I just mentioned, we'll know that camera 1 is connected to port number 1 or port number 2. Okay, also I mentioned you don't have to physically restart the whole switch itself. You can just restart one particular port on that particular switch. Okay, also the loss of images. Okay, this is because of upload of unexpected overload on the bandwidth. So in the event that the client has a low bandwidth or an issue on his physical bandwidth, we will then receive a notification as installers. We can then notify your client, ma'am, sir, please remove particular cameras from switch A and please move it to switch B. Then this will assist us with bandwidth on his physical network. Okay. So like I mentioned before, we will then receive a report or a notification. Okay, so on this physical report or on our overview of our physical thing, on our physical data sheet, we will then be able to see all the related devices that's connected onto that device. Okay, we can then see the topology of the devices and the IP addresses of it. We're then able also to see our real-time and automatic status refresh. So this will automatically refresh our statuses of our device without physically going into refresh itself. We'll then see that devices are currently online right now or devices are offline. We're then also able to see when the device went offline. It gives us time, the date, or for example, just the timestamp of this. Okay, then we can also quickly remote maintenance to improve work efficiency. So we can receive a notification even prior to the client actually knowing his device is offline. So if a device goes offline, we'll receive a notification immediately. We can then log into that physical device and we can actually rectify the problem without physically going to site. Okay. Or like I mentioned before, we can also do the remote restart of the physical devices. So provided the devices is added to our HIK Pro Connect, we are then able to restart that device or manage that particular port on that particular device. Also, our physical switches itself, there's no need to go to site to physically do upgrades on it. Provided it's connected to the physical network itself, the device will automatically do its firmware updates. So like I mentioned before, if you look at the actual topology of the device, there we have our physical switch. Okay, then we have our devices that's connected to it. So for example, our physical cameras, it will then show us the model number of the particular camera, or if you want to change the name of it, you're able to do so. It then shows us the IP address of the particular camera. It will also show us for example, they're showing us 192.168.1.5. There's a particular problem on that port. It's showing that particular port is blocked. We're then able to log into that port itself, unblock that particular port, change the IP address, or if it's a username and password that needs to be changed, we're then able to do so. So we can view this from our portal site as well as on our mobile devices. So like I mentioned before also, this will physically show us your network statuses of your device. So like I said, you can physically see the status of your device if the device is online. We're also able then to see if there's a network switch or is it the virtual network switch. We're also then able to see our network cameras, our doorbells, our HIK Pro Connect box, our DVRs, etc. Everything from one particular portal. Then it will automatically show us which devices is normal, which devices is abnormal, which devices are currently offline, all of that from one particular portal itself. Again, as mentioned, right? So this is a particular switch that we have. So this is a smart switch that is on site. Okay, so here we can see all our greens will show that our physical devices is connected, or in the event there's a port issue, it will show red on our statuses itself. Maybe there's an alarm on that particular status on that particular port, or is a physical issue on that particular port. We are then able to know exactly that port number 14 has a particular problem. Please go and restart that particular port, or change the IP address, or maybe there's a cable issue. It's very easy for us to find right now, because previously if we didn't have a smart switch, we were taking out cables from port 1 to port 30 just to find where our particular problem lies. So this makes it just much easier for us, and then we're able to obviously clear the alarm remotely or physically on site if we are there. And like I mentioned, we can just physically restart that particular port, and we do not need to restart the whole switch. So previously, what would happen is if we had an issue with a particular switch and we want to restart the switch, that means all the clients' other cameras are now going to go down for the time period that we are troubleshooting. So right now, it's just easy. Take one particular port that we need, restart that particular port, and all the other cameras is still up and running. Okay, so this just shows us, I'll play the video right now. This just shows us our physical topology and how it looks and what we can do. So what this also shows us is if we go, for example, on our SADP tool, we now have 200 devices or 200 cameras on that. We do not know which camera is connected to which NVR or DVR. But if you look at the actual topology on that right now, we were able to select that particular camera. It will then tell us that that particular camera is now added to NVR with this particular IP address, which we never had that features before. But like I mentioned, we have to have the smart switch in order to get this functionality. So basically, like I mentioned again, this is just to show our network status in advance to take action. So we can know as technicians, there's a particular issue on a particular site, even prior to the physical client knowing, we can then fix the physical problem for the client. And then obviously just send a report to the client. Hey, ma'am, sir, your device went offline at this particular time. This was the actual issue. Okay. Then we can also physically quickly locate the abnormal device. Like I mentioned on the switch, it will automatically tell us which port is faulty and which port needs to be fixed. Okay, we can also then do our remote restart and our Clash PoE devices, which I mentioned, and then also the physical upgrading of the physical switch itself. We don't need to physically go to site. This will automatically get done online. Then it's just showing us our models for our particular smart switches, right? So if you look at the firmware versions, we need to make sure that these are particular devices that it supports. These are our smart switches. So it just gives us our different smart switches from 8-port switches to 16-port switches, just depending on your client's needs. Okay, and then if you would like this particular switch, you need to make sure that your HIK Pro Connect is on version 1.5 and above, and your client is on version 4.10 and above. Okay, but I do suggest that you just ask your clients to upgrade to the latest HIK Connect application, and you as installers, please make sure that you are on the latest version of HIK Pro Connect. And that is the end of the training, guys. If there's any questions, please feel free